you usually do the roll call, right? And the,
Yes, I think Dr. Vitale is going to help us out.
okay,
And
good.
there's no agenda items this evening, so
Yes.
we'll.
That makes it rather easy. Okay. Now ready, I guess? That's it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our November 3rd work session. Will everyone please rise to pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Vitale, may we have roll call?
Mr. Acker,
Here.
Mr. Azar,
Here.
Dr. Cadman. Here. Mr. Fleming.
Here.
Mr. Medensky,
Here.
Mrs. Pusateri. Here. Mr. Robeson,
Here.
Mrs. Tierney. Here. And Mrs. Brzezowski.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we do the superintendent report first. Okay, Mr. Mirabelli, may we have the superintendent report?
Certainly, well, that was a quick handoff.
Yes. It was.
So I wanted to start just by noting, yesterday was election day, and I was at the polls. I got to speak to a few people there, and very nice turnout. I wanted to say congratulations to those elected.
Yeah.
Also, congratulations to those who ran, because it's quite a call to service, and as board members here will tell you, it's a very challenging job. They don't get compensated for it, and I don't think there's been a more challenging time to be a board member. So, so thank you to all involved in the board and those with interest in the board. It means a lot because since my being here, board members have challenged us, they've asked great questions, and they've made us better. So for that, I thank you all, and I really look forward to those who are coming on and those who I've got to work with for the last decade or so. So thank you. The first thing I want to start out with, since we had some frost on the ground and on our windshield, is snow days. And we want to be very clear when we talk about snow days and virtual days and flexible instructional days. So I just want to share with you our thinking on it. As you know, we had the Grinch that stole the snow days last year a couple of times, and we had a lot of feedback on that. And Dr. Mann was very explicit in sharing the feedback that he had received. So we're going to think about snow days two ways. First, we did apply for emergency days where we can flip the switch and go virtual. We did apply for that in the past. So, but also we recognize there's real value in calling a snow day when there's snow on the ground, because sometimes kids just need a day to get out and play in the snow. And I think we recognized that last year and we pivoted, but I just want to declare up front that it is my intention to continue with that philosophy, that on a day when there is significant snow on the ground, we would be more likely to call it a snow day with no virtual instruction. If there's ice on the ground and it's dangerous to transport, we would be more likely to call that a virtual snow day. So there's no blanket statement, all snow days are virtual, and there's no blanket statement the other way. I will do my best. I realize there is no correct answer on snow days, and I will be wrong. It's probably 50% of the population, but I will do my best at weighing. I recognize that parents have obligations to have their kids watch during the day. And I'll do my very best to work my way through the snow day decisions. And we'll get out on the roads early, and we'll do our very best. I pledge to you that it won't be perfect, but I will do my best to communicate. And we're trying to communicate on the front end here as to what it looks like. The other thing I want to say is if it snows tonight, we are not exactly ready to go to a virtual day. K through 5, we don't have all the devices out. We're not one-to-one K through 5, so not every student has a device right now. 6 through 12, everyone has a Chromebook. It's one-to-one. We're fine there. But K through 5, Dr. Vitale just put a survey out, and I think the results are due Friday. Oh, they're due today. So we have the results in who needs devices K through 5. We've applied for a competitive grant through, it's stimulus funds, but it's through the Federal Communications Commission, E-rate. And we were awarded, I believe, $87,000 for applying with that. And great compliments to Mr. Suma with collaborating and securing those funds with us.
Weren't we one-to-one last year?
We were, we did collect and refurbish
Okay.
some machines. We
Okay.
upcycled, recycled, and disposed of some that
Okay.
that were unusable. So, but we're confident we will have enough supply to make that happen. We did have a survey out though to see who needs a device, and I think it was fairly significant number needs a device. But we'll be in a position with the existing stock and the grant funds and to make sure that every student has access to a Chromebook so they can get to Google Classroom and communicate with their teachers on a virtual snow day or an emergency closure day that we consider to be, virtual. So, but we think we can make that happen in fairly short order. Yeah, a time estimate, perhaps middle of the month.
I would say by Thanksgiving.
So with the grant, you have already placed an order for more Chromebooks?
I think we ordered approximately, off the top of my head, I don't recall the number, but about 50,000 of that grant was for Chromebooks. And we may try to reallocate and make 100% of the grant for Chromebooks just to, because we
Have they
see
been ordered?
Yeah.
they're on site.
They're,
I'm sorry. Yes, those new Chromebooks are on site.
oh,
That's
great.
better.
Okay, because I was afraid that maybe there might be a holdup like there
Yeah.
was in the past. Okay, great.
So, we look forward to deploying those to the families that need them. And we think they'll serve a greater purpose than just access to the internet on a snow day, to the Google Classroom on snow days. And once this is available, we'll have a rollout through probably the school buildings. We'll be communicating with families to say, here, come pick it up, or we'll send it home with the child. But we'll make sure to clearly communicate that. How we will roll this out, and as well as I realize not everyone in the district watches the board meeting, but we'll make sure that we communicate our philosophy on snow days and how it'll all work. The next, anybody have questions?
The schedule on the calendar, just to clarify, and I think this is great that modified kindergarten schedule, is that just for those kind of like 2-hour delay days, or is that all the time?
Can we just, I think Dr. Vitale is going to cover that in her presentation.
That's fine. That's great.
But great question.
I have a question.
Yes.
So are the Chromebook distribution, is that the only impediment to virtual classrooms? That's the only thing we have to do. Okay.
Yeah, that's really it.
And that'll be by Thanksgiving.
But we just have to tag those that came in and get them set up and deployed to the families. So
So what happens if there's a significant weather event before Thanksgiving?
we'll close.
We'll close entirely.
Yeah. That's not, we hope to have the flexibility to do what's best relatively at the time. But, it is a priority to get these devices into people's hands, regardless if the reason is a snow day or if there's just a need to research at home or do homework or things of that nature. Any other questions on snow days, virtual?
And Mr. Mirabelli, I not to go into too much into the weeds, but for those Chromebooks, is there like antivirus software and network protection? Because I know a lot of devices like that, if they're mass distributed, which for good reason it is, can be soft targets for viruses that get into the system and into larger, like our Infinite Campus. I mean, that's how it happens.
I can't speak overly specifically to the technical aspect. I do know we subscribe to Google Console, which gives us ultimate control over the device, including shutting it down whenever we need to. I presume there's content filtering, but off the top of my head, I am not certain.
Okay, and I'm not looking for like content protection for like inappropriate content, just intrusions, really, like ransomwares, basically.
Let me give you a
Yeah,
specific
and I'm assuming you don't
answer.
know the details, but just to keep it, you should be aware, because, you know, it's happened at other schools, and I mention this every year. And when I hear of mass distribution of Chromebooks, I just think of the risk.
That'll be, Mr. Sumo will know right off the top
Yeah,
of his
and it's
head.
definitely
And,
manageable. I just want to make sure that we have it.
It's a great question.
All right.
We'll make sure we get the right answer back to you. Okay, if there are no other questions on snow days, the next topic I wanted to talk about was the vaccine clinic, or clinics, shall I say. Totally optional, I'll say up front. But again, a lot of questions. When will we reschedule the vaccine clinic? And we've had a lot of discussions and dialogue with various stakeholders. But I was recently speaking with our pharmacist, who has helped us out in the past with the clinics. And we've come up with a few dates. We're going to consider these tentative till we lock them in, but we are currently looking at Friday, November 19th for staff booster shots
After school hours?
after school hours.
Okay,
It'll be immediately following dismissal.
okay.
We don't have the specifics for time, but generally after school hours, not evening hours, but after school. Then we would be looking at children are now ages 5 to 11 are now eligible to receive the Pfizer vaccine. Again, totally voluntary. We are looking at, for those children and anyone else of any age that would like to receive a vaccination, on the next day, on Saturday, November the 20th for their first round. And that same group, Saturday, December 18th for the second round. So we wouldn't be losing any instructional time, or professional development time was actually an important topic that came up when we were discussing the scheduling. And scheduling it during the weekend, we thought was important as well, or toward the weekend. Any questions on that?
I just have a question. So with the 5 to 11-year-olds, I don't know who was involved in the prior clinics, but there's a difference, obviously, like dose difference, but also administration difference when you're talking about kids versus adults. So did you get together with a home health agency? I'm not sure who gave the injections, but I would just kind of make a plug that, you know, you got some pediatric people for the kids.
That's great insight. We will have to address that with the pharmacist to ensure that we're doing it properly. I'm going to have to rely on the professionals because it's just not my space, but it is my concern to promote safety, of course. But we'll make sure to have that conversation with the pharmacist to ensure.
And Dr. Cadman, you bring up a good point, because what about the informed consent part? I mean, does that happen before, you know what I mean? Like, there's questions that the young children have to answer, and do they have the ability to do that?
I mean, this is why I want to communicate ahead of time to give you the dates, and we're going to nail down the details and ask the question. But these are great questions. And if anyone has any more now or tomorrow, please send them to me, and we'll make sure that we work through them. So we thought, again, building level, because people are really tuned into their building level remind, but there will be a mass district-wide message going out. There are other means that are a little more specific in the buildings. We don't want to over promote this, but we want to make sure people are aware that it's available.
So in your mind, if someone from out of the district shows up, turn them away or back?
That would be a decision of the pharmacist. If they, in the beginning, I remember there was a specific allotment. Everything was very scarce. I don't know that it's as scarce these days. Yeah, it's a great question, but I don't know that we would turn, someone away that just wanted to be here. But as you know, there's so many places to get it these days. I think the intent here is if any student or employee wishes to receive an injection, it sort of works with our,
Might have people from OLP, for example, that live in the district. Don't wanna show up.
it's very possible. And again, we'll consult with the pharmacist on that. Our important thing was to communicate a date and a plan. And we'll finalize the plan part next. But as soon as we knew what the dates were, I wanted to alert the board, and we just learned of them a few hours ago. Any other questions? All right. A quick word, and I don't want to get into masking too much here, but we did meet with the Secretary of Education last week sometime, Thursday. And we had the opportunity to have a very nice, candid conversation with the secretary. And he spoke about masking in the sense of the state really wants to get out of the business of this mandate. And they really want to return it to local control. And he didn't give us a timeline on how that would happen or when that would happen, but he did point to the state really paying a close attention to the data after the holiday. First holiday, and then second, he sort of alluded to Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's both separately and together as to when they might look to make a move. So the board should probably be aware that that is a goal of the administration, so that the board can be prepared to deliberate and make their own decision when it is returned to the board discretion. So beyond that, a very important topic I wanted to talk about, and the board is well aware, I think every board's well aware, that substitute teachers are scarce. They are hard to find. They're hard to recruit. And the job market at large is very hard to navigate in all industries. But that being said, we have a concept, the way we're covering classrooms right now, when no sub is available, and that happens 30% of the time, is 40% of the time,
It's about 65% of the time.
the fill rate.
The fill rate is about 45% of the time. I'm sorry. So it's about 55% of the time that we do not have a substitute teacher when a teacher is out.
So as a result of that low fill rate, and this is pretty across the industry, we, by the way, have one of the higher fill rates in the area, according to the research we did. So as a result, we have a concept in our contract called sit in and cover, where a teacher who has a prep would lose their prep and go cover another classroom during that time. Or a teacher would have classes combined, which is disruption of two classrooms because one teacher is out. And I think if you asked most of our teachers, they would say, I do not want sit in and cover. They want their prep time and they want to teach their class. And we have shattered every record on paying out of sit in and cover, like stacks and stacks of slips. So, but the issue really, I mean, it's a cost issue, but really we have a burnout issue, is what I'm hearing, right? Is that a fair classification? Because teachers are constantly being pulled, pushed, going to different places that, when what they really want to do is teach their class the best way they know how, and they're getting tired, and their preps are then at home. Now they're being compensated for their prep, but there's a lot of issues with somebody constantly covering. For example, I think Mr. Snyder was telling us about classes in the auditorium and coming in the auditorium and having 2-3 classes in there and somebody covering that. So not the best educational environment. So the problem is well defined, but the solutions are not. And it's easy to say the job market is hard, it's tough. Why try? But we've sort of come up with a little bit of a task force here to think up think outside the box, come up with some solutions and some ideas to, improve the problem. And we're competing with other schools for these subs. So I don't want to go ahead and give you every single idea that we've brainstormed so far, right? But I want to tell you there are a number of approaches you can take to recruit subs. One popular one is to work with the daily sub rate. Ours happens to be the lowest. But you talk to certain colleagues who have boosted it up very high, and they might tell you that there's not really that much of a difference. So we're thinking about what the sub rate looks like and incremental approaches and different things like that. Compensation, I think, is important to some, if not all, of the subs, but we're also looking at who do we want to recruit and how do we want to recruit them. And I think there are three key groups that we need to look at, and that's retirees, those who have already taught here, who have left, and they are able to come back through Kelly Services because they wouldn't be an employee of ours. We're looking at college students, and I believe the minimum is an associate's degree in education. No,
Just 60 credits, not an associate's degree. They have to have 60 credits and be enrolled in a teacher prep program.
so we're looking to find ways to work with colleges, work with our retired group, who we have contact information for many. And the other significant place that we're finding a little bit of success is parents of the district who have the educational requirement and have kids in the school, and they may have interest in being in the school while the kids are in the school. So we need to do a better job of reaching out to these three groups. So we're working on some ways to communicate with these folks. We've met with Kelly Services about how to streamline the process of onboarding these folks without making it so onerous and lengthy. And Dr. Vitale made some great suggestions on how to compress this and make it flow a lot quicker. And I think they were receptive.
So, excuse me, if you are recruiting them, are you recruiting them and they have to go to Kelly Services to get hired for the purpose of serving only us? I mean,
Well-
how does that work? How could they be exclusive to us for Kelly?
Some subs are just, they're free agents. Some of them will go to the closest, most profitable school.
Mhm.
But I think you'll find that there are reasons certain subs want to be in certain places. And I think it's incumbent upon Abington Heights to explain to them that this is what we
But what I'm
offer.
saying is, why don't we just hire them? Why do we have to do it through Kelly? I don't understand how that, because Kelly would obviously take a piece of whatever the compensation is that they,
Background checks and things like that.
They do.
well, yeah, but if we're hiring like, yeah, I'm just trying to understand why the middleman.
There are a number of reasons to go with Kelly Services, and quite frankly, it's not cost. There's a very significant HR burden to do it in-house. There's also the fact that Kelly Services does the calling, so to speak. We used to have a full-time person that would wait by the phone for people to call in,
Okay.
track it, call the sub list. In this case, there's not many people to call, but there are certain advantages to using Kelly Service. They do provide some efficiencies in the delivery of service.
Okay.
However, we do think that there needs to be some personalization and relationship building with not only Abington Heights and Kelly Services, but the sub in Abington Heights. And we have some creative ideas on how to sell to them what it is that we do. And again, I don't want to outline all those ideas here in case any of my our competitors are listening, but nothing earth shattering, but a different approach. And we're, if we can get 10 percentage points on our fill rate, I think that would make a big difference in the daily operation here. But I can't quantify a stated goal, but I do think we can communicate better what it is that a substitute can expect when they come to Abington Heights. And I think we can think about compensation in a little bit different way to substitute teachers. And we'll have a full proposal for you, hopefully in the November board meeting, but perhaps shortly thereafter. because this requires action very soon. We're letting our administrators and our teachers know that we are working very hard on this, and there hasn't been a day that has gone by that we haven't met and talked about this. So this is at the top of our agenda to try to improve the situation with substitute teachers. We have similar staffing issues with aides. So we're also thinking of some creative solutions with how to adjust aides schedules and hours. And I'll have some ideas for you, perhaps an executive session in the November board meeting as far as what we might be able to do there. And finally,
Oh, I have one question on that.
I'm sorry.
So can you outline for us what the primary reason for such a high volume of substitute teachers is? I mean, is it COVID? Is it, I mean,
Meaning why so many
Yeah,
teachers take
well, yeah.
off and that we need substitute
yeah.
teachers?
So what's the ongoing issue?
So it's just naturally people are taking off and when we talk about 45% of our fill rate, it doesn't necessarily mean a specific number, but teachers are taking off as they have the right to, and we're unable to secure a sub for that. We haven't seen a significant spike in comparison to previous years of more teachers out than any other year. It's just when they're out, we do not have a substitute to fill them.
So the issue is the lack of subs.
Yes. The sub pool is very, very small. And, and again, you'll find this problem, it's a universal problem, but it's one that we reject, that we can't do anything about it. There's something we can do, and we're going to figure something out, but, and if we can't, it won't be for lack of trying. So the other place where we have staffing issues is bus drivers. And that to cancel a bus route is really unprecedented. It's unacceptable, but really unavoidable. There was literally no one to drive the bus on those 4 days, I believe. So there was nothing we can do at that time. But the transportation department received a list of CDL drivers in our district from the Department of Transportation Administration of Pennsylvania. Made this information available to us through the NEIU. The NEIU passed it on, and we, through our transportation department, called every single CDL driver on that list. It was 45 people, and I think 4 of them expressed interest, and I'm not sure where it went from there, but I think we have maybe a couple in the pipeline through that initiative. We also sent out, Roar held an event over across from the middle school at their garage, or over there. And Roar had an event to kind of show people what it's like to drive a bus. What does it look like? How does it handle, to try to get people comfortable there. We also posted the various contractors' names and phone numbers right on our website to try to recruit more drivers and help them out there, because we need to be able to get kids to school to learn. And
No, but the bus, Roar and the Branch and the people that we contract with for buses, they are the ones that provide the bus drivers, yes or no?
yes, we're trying to, the state is partnering with us to help them,
To help
and
them.
we're partnering
Okay.
with them to help them the best we
We
can.
no longer own any buses or employ any bus drivers, is that correct? Do we have,
That is correct, that we no longer own any buses or have any bus drivers. We do have some vans, and we do have some van drivers.
okay, that are our employees,
Correct.
okay.
Those are also hard to find, van drivers in-house as well. But so, we thought it was important to do what we could to try to help out the contractors. We hope that it bears some fruit. I'll also note that before all of this labor shortage issue came along, the bus contractors were already struggling with paying higher wages and higher fuel costs at a staggering rate. So they are experiencing some pain, and it's probably a conversation that will come up in the future. So I just wanted to put that on the board's sort of a calendar, not necessarily a calendar, but just have an awareness to it. Because they are certainly, they're working hard and they are struggling. And then.
And Mr. Marabelli,
yes.
just to put some context to that, I mean, it's not just Northeast Pennsylvania, it's not just Pennsylvania. I mean, there are even states, and I think it's Massachusetts in the Northeast where they even thought about, and I think they may have actually done it where they call the National Guard. I mean, because they're having some serious, so it's not just unique to this area or even the state of Pennsylvania. It's really hitting hard in the Northeast of the United States.
Absolutely. It's a pretty universal problem. And, it's just, we're trying to find creative solutions to help our partners out in all three cases here that we're talking about.
Mr. Maravelli,
Yes.
are contracts annual?
Our contract is annual, yes. They renew automatically. Well, so long as everyone agrees, they renew automatically.
Okay.
And then finally, I figured I would, before I turn it over to Dr. Vitale, I had a little bit of good news to share. And thanks to the great work of my staff in the business office, who has been working well ahead of pace, we learned our tentative preliminary fiscal results, right? So we finished the 2021 school year with a budget surplus of about 2.3 million, largely driven by well higher than expected local tax collections, earned income tax, all the stimulus money coming into the economy. But also real estate tax collections were right on point where they've always been. But also people sold a lot of homes. And, we get 0.5% of every sale price in the district. So local collections, and also we were able to lock in some high interest rates right before the rates dropped on some CDs. So we exceeded our expectations on interest earnings as well.
And doesn't that include the ESSER money or whatever? That doesn't, or is that outside of that?
So as far from a budgetary standpoint, we sort of expected the ESSER money, or we deferred it to the current year. So the only positive federal money was the positive budget news was that we applied for FEMA money and got reimbursement at about $100,000 there. So that again led to the surplus. And then on the expense side, we did have some COVID related savings. Building was shut down here and there, which created some savings for the district.
And Mr.
So-
Marabelli, in terms of the taxes, because I think it might have been 2 or 3 years now where we were very good at collecting delinquent taxes and the rate of the delinquency was going down. And then I think the county sort of forced our hand to give that service up to the county because we were being charged. Is there any stats on if there's the level of service of both two things? One is the delinquency rate and then the collection rate.
So let me just say, the county does not collect our taxes. Yeah, we pay them 5%. Yeah, I'll just, because it's something I always like to make very clear. We pay Lackawanna County 5% of our delinquent taxes to do absolutely nothing. Okay, so we've established that. And so we use Portnoy Law Associates. We think they're effective at what they do. And in early parts of the process, we think their fees are lower than the county's option for our taxpayers. It does get expensive as it progresses through the courts and things like that. But we think they're effective at it. But as far as the delinquency rate, we have a very stable tax base. But the one thing that we do that I'm not sure that anyone else does is about 5 or 6 years ago, we started mailing out a courtesy notice in mid-November that said, hey, your taxes are not paid yet. Did it get lost in the mail, basically, is what we're saying. Here's a gentle reminder, before you hit the 10% penalty period, here's a chance to pay it at face. And we found that did help significantly and continues to do so. And we'll be sending that out in a week to 10 days from now.
Plus, we changed it from a lump sum to you can make 3 payments.
That's another excellent point. Yes, you can make installment payments so long as you hit 3 prescribed dates along the way.
So getting back to the ESSER money, that was deferred to this school year. So how much was that exactly?
So ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 add up to, I want to say $3.4 million ESSER, and the first ESSER was 700,000 or so. So it's a little north of $4 million. The first ESSER was used to fund all of the measures we put in place to respond to COVID. The ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, based on the number of additional staff we put on for the current year, that will be consumed over the next 2.5 years with those 10 staff that we put on.
Okay.
And those are approximate numbers, but they're listed and published on the website, so anybody can go see what it is in my budget presentations as far as what we're using the money for and what the allocations were. Any other questions? Oh, I did want to note that traditionally, when we have a surplus, it gets transferred to the capital reserve fund for use of the many upcoming future capital projects. So that's what we intend to do, absent any dissent on that. It's just traditionally how it's been. So
What's the current capital reserve
I think
for 2
once
million?
it's a little, we'll end up with a little over $5 million, about
No,
5.5.
right, but before the surplus, we were at, right? We were at
3.2 plus 2.3
Right,
will
yeah,
will
we're-
get you to 5.5.
Mhm.
So a little bit of a head start going into
Mhm.
some of the bigger projects on the horizon.
And how many years on the debt service? Just a couple, right?
We have approximately 4.5 years, I want to say, on
Okay.
the bond, and our lease is right around the same time period. 2026, I want to say, we'll make our last payment. So if there's no other questions, I will turn it over to Dr. Vitale to discuss a few instructional items.
Promise I'll be brief, but what we kind of realized is that we are working on a lot of projects, and we thought it would be important for the community and for the board to kind of know what we're working on. So I kind of took the calendar and made it every board meeting, we will talk about specific projects and then give you updates accordingly. So tonight, we're going to talk about the updated calendar, the education of students in quarantine. And I know that was brought up at a previous board meeting, and I just wanted to follow up with you on what we're doing. And then also an elementary report card revision process. So the updated calendar is a different format. It actually looks like a calendar, which is super exciting to me. And we wanted to add information because as I started to ask questions about the calendar, I realized that the calendar didn't have certain things on it that it should. So we added early dismissal times because early dismissal times are actually different for parent-teacher conferences versus professional development days. And we felt that it was really important to communicate that to families from now on the calendar so that they can plan for that. We also added all of the parent-teacher conference dates because there are 3 for the middle school, 2 for elementary, 3 for kindergarten, and 2 for the high school. So it's all different. So we just wanted to make sure we were communicating that. We also took the opportunity to align the kindergarten schedule for more consistent programming. So basically with early dismissals, we have 4 planned early dismissals between parent-teacher conferences and professional developments. Well, that means that PM kindergarten doesn't come in on any of those days. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep flipping it. So AM will come in on the first early dismissal, PM will come in during the morning on the second early dismissal. And then we're communicating that out to families actually tomorrow. We just wanted to have the opportunity to talk to the board about it tonight. And that way it's a more consistent timeline and PM kindergarten doesn't continually miss out. Also, I realized that 2-hour delay schedule, AM kindergarten came in at 10:20 and left at 11:10. And they had a whole 50 minutes. And I don't know if you have ever been with 22 5-year-olds, but that entire time is getting boots and mittens off and then getting boots and mittens back on. So we decided to do a modified kindergarten schedule that we will be sending out to our kindergarten parents to let them know that we're changing the times, again, just to allow for more consistent programming. So we're hoping that the new format, which we will send out to our families shortly, is more readable and communicates more clearly. So education of students in quarantine, we know that this came up at the one of the last board meetings, and we just wanted to follow up and make sure that everyone kind of knew what is happening. And I want to be clear, this is not what is happening in response to that. This is what was already happening, and we just didn't have all the information to speak really clearly on it. So every teacher who was a core content teacher, so our phys ed teacher necessarily doesn't have a Google Classroom set, but all of our math teachers, reading teachers, they all have Google Classroom set up. And in the Google Classroom, if a student is in quarantine, they post instructional resources and materials that they are giving their students. And they also post additional information. So if they have a slide deck for their presentation, if they have instructional videos that they've created, or that's from like a vetted source. So if they're doing some lecture, let's say in a social studies class at the high school, they're either doing their pre-recorded lecture that they had from March of 2020 or anytime last school year, and they're posting that, or another resource from a vetted source. They're offering discussion boards where students can kind of communicate with the teacher, and then any assignments that align with the activities in the classroom. Also, for certain students and in most situations, additional resources are being sent home. So we really don't want students just in front of a computer the entire day. So we're sending home other resources that they can complete so that it's not just kind of that fatigue you get from being online. At any point, a student or a parent can reach out to the teacher for guidance or support. If students are out 5 or more days, the teachers are checking in with the students and the parents, either via Google Meet, via a phone call, or an email. How are you doing? What do you need? Do you have any questions? How can I help you? And in speaking to our teachers and our building principals, they are more than willing to work with individual families as concerns arise to meet the needs of the students. So if students need to check in every day, our teachers are doing it naturally. Before this question even came up, they're checking in on their students and making sure, and they're answering their questions. Our goal is really to ensure consistency of learning and sequential nature of kind of our academic instruction so that it's not splintered. And our teachers are doing a lovely job of doing it and making sure that the students receive what they need while they are on quarantine. Elementary report card process. So we want to do an elementary, yes, I'm sorry.
So, how is this monitored? Who monitors whether these things are done?
The building principal is monitoring it. And if parents have any questions or concerns, reach out to your building principal and they will make sure it's being done. But in speaking to our principals and their conversations with the teachers, it's being done. But if there are questions of specific incidences, we would say reach out to the principal. Any other questions? Okay, elementary report card revision process. So why? We want to make sure that we're better communicating our student progress. When I first saw our elementary report card, I struggled to understand it, and I have 20 years in education, and most of those years have been in the elementary level. And we also have to make sure that it's aligned to standard-based learning, and that we are not giving percentages at the elementary grades. We are rating them on whether they're meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, or whether they need improvement. In order to align that, we have to really help our teachers understand what that looks like, how to grade it, and then what those metrics are. That way, a first grade teacher at Clark Summit is doing the same expectations of a first grade teacher at another grade in another building. So we want to make sure we're aligning it. So the how is we're first going to survey. A survey is all prepped and ready to go out for tomorrow morning. We're going to survey our families, and it's a pretty comprehensive survey, so it'll take about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're going to survey our teachers of what do they think of the structure, what do they like, and do they have suggestions. We're also going to form a committee. We'll form a parent-family committee and then also a teacher committee, and we're going to work on really creating a stronger, more clearly communicated grade reporting process. And our goal is to have a draft out and ready by the end of this school year. Look at that draft, do any final reviews over the summer, and then start next school year with a revised report card that really is, one, more aesthetically easier to understand, but also clearly communicates. So any questions about that? This is very exciting. Middle school is going to be next year. Yes. No, I wish. It would be beautiful if it could. But the reality is that there are so many different aspects of a report card between the different content areas and characteristics of a successful learner. And really our teachers are going to look at all of it with the committee of parents as well and better understand it. And then the important part of this process is to say, when we have a standard in English language arts, we want to say what is meets expectations in kindergarten. And we have to define that for our teachers and give them a better understanding to allow that consistency. And that's the part that takes really the most amount of time is defining that and kind of creating a metric system. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, and this may not have any application directly to the elementary report card, but I think in general, I'm not real clear what PTA's purposes are.
Okay.
And maybe use the PTAs to help with these types of things and get more input directly from the PTAs. Just seems to me that they're very strong in the elementary schools.
So
Use them more, more constructive.
sure, and we would want to leverage their kind of volunteerism and their engagement into helping with these kind of projects. But from my aspect of what I've seen from the PTAs in this district is they're very strong on fundraising and then supporting different programs. And that is kind of how they're allocated. But I agree with you that we're going to be leveraging them for committee work and things of this nature and get them involved on the academic side, not just the fundraising side. So when, again, the survey is going to be sent out tomorrow. We're asking for it to be returned in a week. Committees are going to begin in November. And again, the final product will be delivered by June and then we'll implement for the coming school year. Now, next time I speak, and you're going to have to be forced to listen to me, so I apologize. We're going to be talking to you about really the Wit and Wisdom program implementation. You spent a long time hearing about that program and deciding on that program, and we have not given you an update on that, and we want you to know how it's going and how well it's going. And also, we have invested in an English curricular revision process with Dr. Pryl, and we will update you on that as well. So that'll be at the next meeting. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
That's great, thank you. No.
That concludes our
Okay.
superintendent report.
Okay, at this time, we will have public comment. For anyone who wishes to address the board, just fill out a card with your name and address. And just remember that you have 3 minutes. If there's anybody else besides these two, I have 2 right now. So Amy Scandale.
Hello, I just want to share, it's very refreshing. It feels like the tone is very nice tonight. I appreciate that. Actually, my question was kind of answered, but I want to talk about the virtual learning and the quarantining. If we are going to be, and you don't have to answer now, or just get back to me. If we are going to have Chromebooks for all the kids, I know there's currently 13 students out that are mandatory quarantined, I believe at Waverly, and 31 in the middle school. That's a lot of kids. I did find out today that a Waverly teacher is actually initiated on their own doing a virtual learning with their students. I really think that needs to be addressed. I think we said that a couple weeks ago, and I said it. If they have the capacity to do it, I don't think it's very hard to follow a 3rd, 4th grader to look at Google Classroom, the parents working, get them online. If they could have some type of option to sit in, if you will, live on, if the teachers would be willing to do that. I just, if this is going to continue to happen, I mean, knock on wood, I haven't experienced it personally with my kids, but I have had friends and they're struggling. The kids are struggling because you just need that teacher interaction. So if we could explore that more once we get the Chromebooks out, I'd like to discuss that more. Thank you.
Is that a high number in quarantine currently, or is that average? Is that what we're experiencing?
I think we're seeing it tick up a bit. I think we have, I think last time we reported cases 2 meetings ago, I think there were 6 cases, and I think we are nearing 45 now.
So
Total.
45 positive cases or
Cumulative,
45 that are quarantining because they had contact?
45 positive cases. I don't have the current quarantined number,
Okay.
although that did not sound like an unreasonable estimate there.
Wow.
So I'm looking at the tracker and it has the date of incident, not the date that quarantine ends. So I can't give a quick answer on how many students are currently in
Oh,
quarantine.
okay.
I think we need to add a column in that tracker for our internal tracker, so we know when they're returning, and that can help us kind of get that information out.
Great point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tom Sheehan?
Hi, my name's Tom Sheehan. I'm from Waverly. I was here last meeting to ask if you would produce a written policy forbidding the teaching of any critical race theory in any of its forms or guises. So I'm here again to ask, have you done anything? Have you discussed it, or have you done anything toward that request?
Not that I'm aware of, that we have not done it.
You haven't?
No, I don't believe so. Have we done?
Okay.
Has there been any consideration to a written policy? I don't think that's.
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
No, we have not.
Okay. I've been informed from what I would consider a reliable source that the board does not exercise any control over curriculum. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, have you produced policies? Can you produce policies that have any control over what's taught and what's not taught?
Well, I think the wit and wisdom is an example of the fact that when new curriculum is introduced or suggested into the district, that it is discussed at a board level.
The
Can
same
you
with-
produce a policy that forbids the teaching of critical race theory in any of its forms?
Yeah. No, I think he's saying, can we? So, right.
I'm sorry.
I said, are you asking, can we or will
Well, I'm asking, can you? I'm not sure, I'm asking, does the board exercise control over curriculum in any form or capacity? And can you produce a policy that would forbid teaching of critical race theory, the 1619 projects, SEL, DEI, we're getting swamped with acronyms now. And this form of, I don't even want to call it instruction, indoctrination, that is intended to divide people into groups and set them one against the other. That's my concern. It's going on. I know it's going on across the country. I hope it's not going on in Abington, certainly not as a policy. And if there are any teachers who are taking it upon themselves to do anything like that, that measures are taken or will be taken or have been taken to stop it. This is anti-American. It's counterproductive. It's indoctrinating children into a mentality that turns them into good little minions in the future. It's communist. What are you doing about it? What can you do about it? Are you doing anything about it? Are you aware of it?
That is not part of Abington's curriculum.
It's not.
It is not.
Well, CRT, you assured me of that, and I'm taking
Yeah.
at your word.
It is.
But
Yeah.
one of the things I just asked is, what is your policy in cases where teachers, their individual teachers take it upon themselves to start teaching stuff like that? It has happened. I know it. I know it has happened. And in anticipation of the probability of it happening in the future, what did you have a policy toward that, or what's done to prevent it?
Well, I think we can say basically that the board does vote on things like textbooks, curriculum. There are general policies out there regarding this. I'm not hearing great consensus on passing a policy immediately. I'm not sure how well studied we are on this particular issue. However, anytime someone teaches something that is outside of our expectations, it is addressed as a personnel issue, and that's not something that we would discuss in a public forum.
If parents want to know, if taxpayers want to know if this stuff is being taught by anybody in Abington Heights School District, they can't know or can.
The question that was posed, what happens if someone teaches something like that? I'm giving you an example,
Okay.
not specific to your question, but if someone teaches something outside of the realm of what is acceptable.
And how do they know what is acceptable? And what is not acceptable?
The district sets expectations. We have
Policies.
training, professional development, and
I'm asking you to pay attention to this, to get in the way of it. I know there are teachers coming out of teacher training institutions that are indoctrinating the teachers in this mentality. And I really don't want to see it infect Abington Heights School District or any other school district for that matter. Let me ask one thing and I'll sit down and maybe you can answer, Ms. Dr. Vitale. Is there a textbook in the Abington Heights inventory, high school, probably advanced placement, authored by Howard Zinn, Z-I-N-N?
I would like to say I know every single textbook that every single student has. I am not well versed in every text, so I will look into that.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. You know why I'm here. I'll be back and I'll be back and I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Nope. All right.
we did have one. We do have one hand raised here.
Okay. Okay, I'm very sorry for that, everyone. We'll figure that out for next time. Okay, if there are no other members of the public that wish to address the board, we have a motion to adjourn. Second.